In this edition of Tech Talks, we'll show you the workaround for losing the switch access while assigning the IP address on the newly created Vlan interfaces in Cisco small business switches. Most of the Cisco small business switches now have their default IPs configured around the default VLAN 1 interface. This is known as fallback IP. Once the switch is configured with an IP on any VLAN interface, the fallback IP will be released. Subsequently, the user will lose any active HTTP, HTTPS, SSH, and Telnet sessions via that IP. To preserve the connectivity prior to assigning an IP address to any newly created VLAN interface, we can assign an IP address on the default VLAN management interface. After that, we can configure the other VLAN interface. Let's see how that works. We'll first log into the Telnet switch. We should note that, by default, our Telnet and SSH services are not enabled on the switch. In this case, we are using one SG250 switch. We need to make sure those services are enabled before logging into our Telnet or SSH. The switch is in default settings. Using Show VLAN command, we can see that VLAN 1 is the only VLAN available on the switch. We'll assign the command Show IP interface to see the IP configuration on the switch. Here's the default IP configuration for VLAN 1. This is capable of obtaining the DHCP IP from a DHCP server when connecting the switch to any DHCP server. If we want to configure the IP on any newly created VLAN interface, we need to first navigate to the Configure Terminal model. We can then create a VLAN 2. Now we'll log into the VLAN interface to configure its IP. Next, we'll assign the IP address. As soon as we hit enter, we'll lose connectivity. This is how we'll lose our default VLAN connectivity. To prevent this, we'll first configure an IP on the VLAN 1 interface. Then, we'll assign the IP address on the newly created VLAN interface. To configure the IP on the VLAN 1 interface, we first need to go to the Command Config Terminal prompt, then log into the interface VLAN 1. We'll assign a static IP address, and we may assign the same IP on VLAN 1. After exiting from VLAN 1, we can create a new VLAN, VLAN 2. We'll log into VLAN 2 and assign the IP address. We now see that we are not losing connectivity. This is how we prevent losing access while assigning an IP on a newly created VLAN interface. Thank you for watching Tech Talks from Cisco. We'll see you next time.